Some people feel the world intensely. They react quickly, absorb everything, and carry weights others don't even notice. And then they blame themselves, not for feeling, but for failing to contain it, for saying too much, or crying when they didn't want to, or staying silent when they wanted to scream. Living like this is exhausting, and faced with that exhaustion, a false choice often appears. Either you learn to harden yourself, or you keep getting swept away by your emotions. This is the modern trap, a false dilemma between losing control or becoming cold, between being honest or being indifferent, between reacting or repressing. And somewhere in that confusing middle ground, many adults begin to confuse self-control with emotional numbness. They start to believe they're only evolving when they stop feeling anything, when nothing affects them anymore. But that's not freedom, that's dullness. Marcus Aurelius, perhaps the most quoted Stoic, wrote that feeling is human, but being dragged by your feelings is a choice. He didn't deny his emotions. He observed them, like a watchful ruler listening to his advisors, but not ruled by them. To him, emotions were subjects, not tyrants, and he knew that letting them govern was giving up clarity. Epictetus went even deeper. The problem isn't emotions themselves, it's our automatic obedience to them, acting on impulse, letting a passing emotion define a permanent action. That's what enslaves us. Not the feeling itself, but acting without awareness. And that's what this video is about. Learning to deal with emotions without denying them, freezing up, or obeying every one, feeling without surrendering, responding with freedom, not conditioned reflex. There's a mistaken idea that confuses authenticity with impulsivity, the belief that being true to yourself means reacting the moment you feel something, as if holding back is dishonesty, as if every impulse is legitimate. But this idea hides a real danger, confusing impulse with identity. Emotions come fast, they're instinctive responses, often involuntary, but consciousness, the ability to choose, to reflect, usually arrives later, and in that space, freedom lives. Marcus Aurelius understood this. He observed his reactions before turning them into actions. He knew that without that space, he would simply be carried away by his internal states, without direction, without true command. We've all experienced saying something in the heat of emotion and regretting it later. Sometimes, a single impulsive sentence causes days of shame, silent guilt, or weakened relationships, not because the feeling was false, but because the reaction was premature. And when you begin to create even a brief pause between what you feel and what you do, your life starts to change. This Stoic practice is simple, yet effective. Feel, pause, then decide. Build a fixed space between emotion and action. Sometimes all it takes is a few seconds, but those seconds are what separate freedom from regret. The guiding question here is direct. If I wait a few minutes, will this reaction still represent me? If the answer is no, then you've already saved yourself from something that didn't need to happen. In the search for balance, many people fall into the opposite extreme of reactivity, repression. They start to rationalize everything. They explain what they feel, but don't actually feel it. They use logic to build walls. And over time, they confuse that with self-control. But what they're really doing is shutting down. The danger here is subtle. On the outside, everything seems fine. Their tone is calm. Their behavior is composed. But on the inside, there's tension, there's impatience, there's stiffness, and that emotional stiffness begins to eat away at them. Over time, they become irritable, numb, disconnected, not by choice, but from buildup. What wasn't fully felt turns into emotional rigidity. Epictetus never preached repression. To him, inner mastery was discernment. It was recognizing an emotion as it arises, welcoming what it brings, but not turning it into drama or into escape. The idea isn't to shut down the emotion by force. It's to listen to it and decide what to do with it, with calm, with presence. This shows up often in daily life. People who seem balanced but explode over small things, who live on edge, even when the world around them is calm, who don't allow themselves to feel and therefore feel everything all at once. The Stoic adjustment here is simple. Acknowledge the emotion, but don't extend the internal story. Don't build a narrative. Don't feed it. Just notice it. Let it pass. The long-term effect? Lightness, fewer explosions, less repression, and more clarity about what really matters to feel and what was simply passing through. Many people believe that every emotion demands an immediate response, that feeling something intensely means something urgent needs to be done, that they must act, speak, or fix it now. This urgency is fueled by a brain-level mistake. We interpret intensity as importance. We mistake discomfort for emergency. But that's not always true. Emotional autopilot works like this, turning every feeling into immediate action. And in doing so, we become slaves to our reactions. Marcus Aurelius, on the other hand, saw emotions as reports, internal information, alerts, signals, but not orders. He didn't treat every impulse as a command. He listened, reflected, and only then acted. Take anxiety, for example. It often shouts. It demands immediate action. It makes the body race. But often, it doesn't need an external response. It just needs to be heard, to be seen, to be given space without being obeyed. The Stoic practice here is brief but profound. When you feel a strong emotion, don't ask what it wants you to do. Ask, what is this emotion trying to show me? What is being revealed here? When emotion becomes a messenger, not a commander, your inner dialogue changes completely. And the simplest test is this: if I obey this emotion right now, will I be better off an hour from now? If the answer is no, then silence, pause, and non-action are the highest form of self-respect. One of the quietest mistakes on the path to emotional balance is believing that becoming cold means you've evolved, that no longer feeling anything is a mark of strength, that emotional distance equals maturity. But this kind of coldness comes at a high cost. It costs connection, it costs meaning, it costs life. The hidden cost of coldness is lost sensitivity. You may no longer suffer much, but you also stop feeling joy. You may no longer react, but you also don't feel moved. You may feel safe, but disconnected. And over time, that safety turns into emotional isolation. You no longer feel pain, but you no longer feel alive. Epictetus never advocated that. He spoke about inner freedom, the ability to feel and still choose, not to act on every impulse, but also not to run from what needs to be felt. True strength lies in fully experiencing your emotions and still responding with discernment. Think about someone who says, "I don't feel anything anymore." At first glance, they may seem at peace, but deep down, they may also be absent from themselves, because every emotion has a purpose. Denying it is denying an essential part of the human experience. The practical method here is integration. Feel everything. Act little. Allow the emotion to exist, but don't turn it into immediate action. And the refining question for this practice is subtle. Am I choosing my response or avoiding the feeling? An honest answer to that reveals whether you are truly free or just frozen. Emotions are not enemies. They don't need to be eliminated. They only need to be governed. Just as a good leader listens to their team without obeying every opinion, you too can listen to your inner world without being swept away by it. Marcus Aurelius embodied this sensitivity with firmness. He felt, but did not surrender. He listened, but made his own decisions. His strength didn't come from numbing himself, but from maintaining clarity even when everything around him was uncertain. Epictetus reinforces this with precision. Freedom is not the absence of emotion. It's the absence of automatic obedience. It's the ability to feel without getting lost. The new definition of emotional balance is this: to feel without being dragged, to react without dissolving, and above all, to protect your dignity even when everything feels unclear. You don't need to be cold to be strong, you just need to be awake, and to choose, with presence, what truly deserves your response. Because in the end, those who govern their inner world don't become slaves to themselves, they become free. Even in the midst of emotion, especially there.